Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of the No Rocket Ships podcast with me, Jamie Hancox. My guest today is Kate Mitchell, who I think I've known for 7 or 8 years, probably. Might even be longer. Longer than that. Okay, moving on. Moving on. When e-commerce was fun, we've known each other from. Okay. Um, Kate, introduce yourself. So who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jamie. My name's Kate. I've got a checkered history, you could call it. I've been in e-commerce, digital, all things since probably what feels like the dawn of the internet, to be honest. But like the last 20 years of my career has been spent in e-commerce, trading, product. So yeah, I've done a variety of roles across lots of different businesses, retail, travel, big ticket, and then, worked across many sizes of companies, small startup right the way through to, big corporates. So yeah, that's me. Thank you.
Where are you now? What do you do now?
At the moment, I'm at the Forge Holiday Group. I'm working as a head of product. So leading a team of product managers as we navigate a lot of change through the business. So I've been there now about 3 months and yeah, enjoying getting back into the deep focus of product.
Groovy. Right. Okay. So today, you know the score, everybody, if you by now. So three subjects ish. So I'm going to ask you about career pivots, including the AI pivot, which obviously is something we everybody kind of half wants to talk about and half doesn't want to talk about right now. Now being December 2025, so I think it will change monthly people's appetite to talk about it, not talk about it. We'll talk about trading and kind of I want to ask you what gets in the way of being able to trade effectively, because I know that you have run trading in recently run trading in various places. And then we're going to talk about ADHD as well, which I can't wait for. We might skate through the first two and get to that quickly. Um, Look, I met you. My memory is seeing you in Manchester when you were at Benson's for Beds.
That's correct.
Right, that was the first time I think we'd met. But you'd So in terms of the pivot between, you've kind of almost explained it, right? E-com to digital to product. Is it all actually just the same job, or 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 or, or, or have things really evolved in terms of the way that people run their digital e-com trading, those digital trading businesses?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to sound really old now, but I started out in digital really by accident. It was, I happened to be working in a startup at the time, and kind of fell into what was then content management and then broadened out into UX when UX was really starting to be a practice in its own right, as a pivot away from web design. So I was really kind of fortuitous at that point in my journey to be exposed to lots of different things. So I think as a young person growing up in the early noughties, working in a great dot-com boom era, I really had the opportunity to work across lots of different areas. And I think given the size of business I was in, we were just professionalizing through that. So we went from being everyone does a bit of everything. So everyone really got to try their hand at lots of different things, to more specialist skill sets. And I seem to land in that kind of what would now be known as product space, conversion rate optimization, experimentation piece, with a bit of content management thrown in. So, I was really lucky to be able to kind of go deep into an area that I found really interesting. But to your question, is it all the same thing? I think it has been all the same thing. I think now businesses are really needing deep areas of expertise in certain areas. So I think if I was to talk about my career history, it'd be kind of go broad, go deep, go broad, go deep, and really kind of throw yourself into areas that you find interesting, and and give yourself that broad suite of knowledge.
What about, I've almost sort of seen you, probably incorrectly, because, as always, people like you and I only ever actually have a conversation for about 10 minutes at a time. This will be the longest conversation we've ever actually had.
Yeah.
I've always sort of thought of you as something of a show me the money type person, as in you've been very commercial, or you've talked very commercially. at every conversation I've ever seen, how presentations been made, etc. Does that does that do you think sit front and center of all of the roles that you've done, and in fact what you're doing now?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you can apply commerciality in through a business lens to anything that you're doing, you're always going to be able to talk value in an organization, whether that be leading optimization teams, which are all about extracting value, through to leading trading teams where you're only as good as yesterday's numbers. So I think the beauty in where I've managed to land myself is that I kind of can sit at the corner of lots of different areas. So I can talk a technical language with developers, and then bring that to life commercially and ask the challenging questions about how is this going to make us money, and do that in a meaningful way. I can apply that practically in trade at the same time and talk to a leadership team about how we're talking to our consumers. So yeah.
And this is a leading question, but does that then give you does the ability to stay close to the money then give you a bigger voice in the businesses that you've worked in? Is that always the case? Sometimes the case, as in the fact that you're earning some of the money.
Yeah, I think the beauty of trading teams is that you can evidence and articulate how the work that you're doing is turning the dial against the metrics that you're trying to achieve. I think particularly with the area that I'm in now, working in a product space, I think quite often as teams of product, we get stuck, we get deep into the problem, and we like the problem solving, the solutions, but the next stage of that is to how does this make us money? So it's always got to track back to those commercial metrics. So yeah, I think that level of commerciality can and should be applied at every level of organization, whether you're a developer thinking about the work that you're creating, or whether you're a marketer thinking about how you could spend efficiently.
And yeah, I was going to say you're part of the secret, not so secret nowadays, Common Features community group. Um, there seems to be this sort of appetite against talking about AI, GEO and AEO and et cetera in the group. I wonder in the role that you're in now, given what we've just said about show me the money, what's you and the business's view of AI adoption kind of currently?
Within our organization at the moment, AI is a huge part of our strategy, and where we see ourselves being differentiated in the marketplace. I think anyone who thought that AI was a flash in the pan is not going anywhere is needs to change that mindset very quickly. I think the importance of AI now is how you make it work commercially. So how do you use it to build products that customers want and add value? So, you know, I think if people are trying to see AI as a solution to everything, then that's the wrong way to look at it. It's got to be how do you use it to um, unlock the goals that you want to achieve, and that comes back to the core principles of create things that customers want to use that's going to help them through their journey. And I think that the flip side of that is how do then we enable our teams using the technology to be more efficient and allow them to be thinkers, not just doers. So, we're thinking about that at all levels of the organization.
And I'm thinking, so I'm a science cottage owner. I'm a customer. Um, and so, I see, we're big fans, right? As owners, we think science is fantastic. We've always had a good experience. But I do wonder whether there must be huge opportunities in those web pages that each of the properties has that automation can help kind of. I'm just thinking about the way that the product page is written. I mean, I think I wrote the listing for our property. There must be huge opportunities there. Is the business sort of exploring those?
Absolutely. One of my team at the moment is working on this exact problem. How do we take very unstructured data in kind of the Google view of the world, and how do we make that into a format whereby we can use that to help customers find the right property? So how do we take the weight out of how people search, and how do we make that personal? I think that's the challenge that everyone is having, whether you're in travel, whether you're in in fashion, it's the two areas where I think so. I'm talking to your point on owners and how do we, our owners are our customers as much as our holiday makers are our customers. So we want to kind of really create that personal relationship with our owners. So they are sticky and they want to stay with us, and also make that process of onboarding, of communicating with us, just so much easier.
I find it fascinating that you've got two sorts of customers, and they have entirely different motivations, and in lots of ways they probably don't get on very well. Every time we get a sort of review that's not where somebody moans about not having a fish kettle or something, we're like, oh, Jesus,
Hmm.
really?
Yeah.
Always those sorts of things are always kind of a bit, yeah, not something I'd ever think I'd get head up about, but you end up getting cross with the trust pilot nature of some of the commentary. It's always interesting, and it's entirely irrational.
Yeah, and I think we need to give, it's a really good point that like that's your, it's your personal space that you've created for someone to come and stay in. So, it's built around you in mind, probably. And I think we need to give consumers a bit more credit as well, because, the fact that they can read a review and there's not one thing there, I think they've got used to going, what does balance look like within this? And I think there's a great way that we can use AI to create that balance. If you can easily summarize all of the reviews and say 90% of people think this, for
Yeah,
this handful of people, it wasn't for them.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
giving the power back to the consumer to make that choice.
yeah. No, it's interesting, isn't it? Okay, so next question we're way over. Um, Trading. What gets in the way of trading teams and trading? Yeah, this is where you share what you want to share, Kate, but we'll edit out what you don't decide
Let's
not to
take
share.
out and all lie down, shall we?
Yeah,
So trading for me, the places where trading has been the most successful for me is where the business is happy to relinquish some control. So I think the best way to think about it is moving from kind of vertical structures into horizontal structures. So and also I don't want the as a leader, I don't want have to make every decision every single time when it comes to what do we spend, what campaign goes out. One thing that I've done very effectively in many places that I've worked is take the people underneath us, empower them to make decisions, and get them all in a room talking to each other, and that has multiple benefits. It allows them to learn from each other. So they're not stuck in their little silo, in their little bubble. You haven't got a brand bubble over here going, everything needs to look like this. And you haven't got a paid media bubble over here going, but our cost per booking needs to come down, or cost per acquisition. I think I think so really kind of liberating that trade and allowing people to, it's not rocket science, right? It's allow them the
yeah,
freedom to make mistakes and give them the right guardrails so they can achieve what they want to achieve. And I think, underpinning all of that really comes down to how clear your your goals are. So if they're understood top to bottom and are ingrained in the work that everyone's doing, the magic should happen, right? Or in my experience, it does happen.
what happens? What are the things that the business keeps hold of? Is it spend typically that the business sort of goes, oh,
I
I'm
think it's the
I'm
most
keeping that.
tangible metric, right? It's
Yeah,
um, it's the easiest one to control and to
yeah,
pull and to push. There's in many other ways when you're looking at conversion or you're looking at kind of product analytics and how people are moving through your digital journey. There's always a bit of a lag, right, in the market's ability to respond to that, or the customer's ability to respond to that. Sometimes you have a direct hit, but I think that's where people are probably most nervy. But I think where we found a really effective way of doing that is to kind of test our way through that. As an example, if we've got a location that's not booking as fast as we want it to book, we'll just move a little bit of budget. We can test it at a hyper local level, or with a specific set of customers, and then you can scale it up. And it's either worked or it hasn't worked, and you've learned something. So it's more every time you do that, you put more tools in your toolkit, that you can then go after. But that only works if everyone is talking to each other and is clear on what they're trying to achieve.
And, okay. And then apart from the business kind of maybe throttling or, yeah, I mean, I get that, right?
Mhm.
It's like it's my money. Thank you very much. You can have it when you deserve it, sort of thing, a bit, I suppose, in some businesses. Anything else that gets in the way?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of sometimes become foul of like overzealous optimization where, thinking about the role of experimentation, optimization, it plays in two spaces, right? It helps in the validation space when you've got something new or, that you're not sure about. And it also helps in that commercial space. I think optimization blew up as like the greatest thing that you could do to drive conversion rate. And actually, what that meant is that conversion rate became the be all and end all without people's ability to read between the lines and think about cause and effect across a broader set of metrics. So I think the ability to optimize, the booking.coms of this world have got that locked up, right? But that's inherently linked to their business model. I think for smaller organizations or people where there's different competing objectives, I think keeping the focus on the commercial element of that is always really important.
And I do find it interesting. I've never been involved in any CRO project, but I've met a lot of CRO people. And generally speaking, my impression has been talking to customers and CRO agencies and platforms, the CRO people are quite scary, kind of, my way or the highway, and these are your things to do this week, etc. And it it has felt as if sometimes you could end up in a almost like extracting all of the personality from the thing that from the product that you're building, and but having great metrics.
Yeah, I mean, but also constraining that creativity, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
if you test everything, you end up with, yes, you end up with incrementality. But I would kind of say your platform then or your offering tends to be a product of evolution rather than revolution, and there's a place for both. And you need to get comfortable with going that we are gonna make some mistakes, and it's about doing that in a taking practical risk that's managed, that's understood, and it's more about a conversation is everyone in this room happy to go on that journey, or do we want to iterate our way through it? And I think they require two different mindsets, but they're also trying to achieve two different things as well.
And we've segued beautifully into ADHD, haven't we? Because I've met the people in the CRO agencies, and they're not. These are I couldn't even describe the personality type. But tell me, you brought this up. Tell me you start the process. I'm going to ask you a question. Just talk to me about ADHD, and given everything we've just talked about.
So, as you know, Jamie, I'm always very honest, sometimes to my own detriment. And I'm a real advocate for kind of mental health and, supporting teams, colleagues, you know, through difficult times and helping people understand and give them the toolkits to help them deal with daily life. It's really important. That's really important to me because I've been through lots of these different parts of my life, and I'll talk very openly about it. ADHD is a very new thing to me, and I think I've gone through life thinking maybe I'm not wired in the same way as other people. My brain works slightly differently. The things that some people find really easy, I just can't do. You know, a to-do list where you've got a list of things that you just emails to reply to. Like my brain will freeze at that, and I'm like, what is? And I got to this point where I was like, what is wrong with me? There's got to be something wrong with me that means I can't do these things. But I think the way so I went on a journey, and I was like, I'm going to go and I'm going to seek out some information. Knowledge is power, right? And when you have the knowledge, you can do great things and you can use it to your advantage. So I went through the process of being diagnosed with ADHD, and at first I went through that cycle of oh my God, what could have been? Like, what could I could be CEO of the world by now. And, I've been fighting this all along, and actually I just didn't know it. But I very quickly had to pivot that into, so now I've got this superpower. How can I go about understanding it and also evangelizing about it, right? Because, you know, I think if I go a day where someone says to me, I think I've got ADHD, I'll say, but have you really? Because the difference for me is can you control it? Can you choose to be distracted by something, or can you not choose to be distracted by something? At points, I haven't got that control. But what it's meant to actually, if you think about people with ADHD and the types of jobs we do, trading's perfect for me. It's fast paced. There's
Yep.
always, you're only as good as yesterday's numbers. I've
Yep.
always got a deadline that we're working towards. It's a perfect environment for me. Product again requires deep focus. So, I can go deep into a problem and find all the little ratty bits that people might miss. And in crises, we're absolutely brilliant, people with ADHD. That's when we kind of switch on and go up a gear. So it's 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 helping people understand the differences, the pros and cons of it. And also, for me now, I'm starting to learn how can I work with that, and it can make me, you know, the best I can be, whether that be at home or at work.
That's fascinating. I'm not glossing over it. You made me really think. Did you watch Lucy Bronze, the footballer, talk about ADHD in the Euros by any chance?
I haven't, no.
God, yeah. I mean, she says it. She describes a version of what you've just talked about. I'll find the clip and send it to you. She says her ADHD is a superpower. Her kind of ability to focus and kind of when she really really needs to. Yeah. Well, what was it that made you? Was it the to-do list that kind of in the end made you do something or investigate further? Or what was it? It must have been a few things. I'm thinking about my own to-do list ability, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to know.
Um, I mean, I've always through my kind of working career, I'd call them boom and bust cycles. So I'd go hell for leather, work 24/7 to achieve a goal, and then the flip side of that was like the depletion of energy and kind of the anxiety that came with that after that, was, at some points crippling. And I did a very good job of showing up and masking that, even though inside I was like, I feel really uncomfortable now. I think I'd always found a way to manage that. If you spoke to any of my they may disagree, but any of my former colleagues, that'd be Kate's got it all together. And that was a very effective mask that I've been putting on. When I kind of went on that journey, it'll be, it might be new news to people in this forum, but I'm also very open about this. I had cancer, and part of my treatment for that was medication that like kind of depleted all my like natural hormones. And one of those things is estrogen depletes dopamine. Estrogen is used to create dopamine, and I'd almost like switched off a power supply. So all of these things that I used to be able to manage suddenly became more difficult. And then navigating role change in that, going from a quite a small business into a large organization, I felt like I'd been invited to a game, but no one had told me the rules, and it was very uncomfortable. And I thought, you know what, if I want to go on and achieve things, I've got to do something about this now and find some answers.
Okay, that's very interesting. Yes, I remember that period very well. Um, I remember messaging you regularly, sort of going, there's only so many different ways you can ask somebody how they're doing
Yeah.
in that moment, right?
For
But
the
yeah,
audience, I'm all good.
yeah, no,
Best,
good.
best I've ever been.
We're delighted that you're back. Um, and you spoke for us at RTS last year, and you did a fantastic job, and it was just wonderful to watch you do it so well and take it so seriously. I'm super grateful about things like that. It means a great deal. So, this is the time. I mean, I don't hear people talk about this very often for people that are grown ups. I'm not going to call you old because I'm old, but you're much less old than me. If you're young and in that same situation, my eldest is 22. He's got a massive to-do list at Net-a-Porter, can't get through it every day. I don't think he's got ADHD, but he's entering the world of structured work like we did all those years ago, what should you be looking out for now if you've never had that experience and you're thinking about and you start to think, okay, this is a struggle.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's having an awareness of where it's impacting you, because it may not be just in the workplace, it may be in, ability to sustain friendships, or, that kind of social budget. Are you always first to the party and then last to leave, and then, that takes you out for 2 or 3 days? So I think what the traits that you tend to find in people with ADHD, and you don't have to have all of that. You can have parts of that. You can just be ADD, for example. Is that hyper focus when they're in the state of doing something and you interrupt them, they're going to find it very difficult to drag themselves out. So particularly you'll probably see this a lot with product people, especially developers, when they're in that hyper focus state. They don't want disrupting. That's a big thing. People pleasing is also, like, particularly in women. The reason why so many women are being diagnosed now is because all the research has been done in boys and men. So this is all new to the, like, neuroscience world, and what you find in women is women mask massively. So as a kind of high achiever, high IQ, high EQ, I've been able to do that very effectively and build a really great career for myself and play to my strengths. But you will definitely see that kind of people pleasing, probably not great with conflict, and I'm missing deadlines as well. Like, I think we can all find the people in the room that go, whatever deadline you give them, it will never be on time, because or you give them something to have in by the end of the day that morning, and it'll be done, and it'll be perfect, and it'll be the best piece of work they've done. I think where the balance is knowing where that's something that they can manage and work with, and you can see that in them, versus those people that it becomes very difficult to do. I think the way organizations should think about this is having those open conversations, creating places of safety where people are really comfortable talking about that stuff. Because it's the conversation, right? It's, oh, I feel like that too. That's going to be the spark that goes on to, oh, I might go and investigate this further. And I think equipping yourself with the knowledge, because if you're aware of every member of your team or people that you work with, you learn how to manage them differently and how to play to their strengths. Like, we should be all about setting people up for success and not failure. So, that education piece and that creating places of safety is really important.
Okay, we're up to time. I am keeping myself very honest, so once again, thank you very much for coming along and talking, and I think that was a fascinating conversation, so thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jamie.